In 2009, Steve Jobs would call out Amazon for not reporting the unit sales of their Kindle e-readers, arguing that the only reason Amazon wasn't reporting unit sales was because they weren't selling very many. 9 years later, Apple would announce that they were going to stop reporting iPhone unit sales. Given that smartphones have basically reached their final form and virtually everyone who wants one and can afford one already has one, it's not surprising that iPhone sales have been declining over the past several years. What may be surprising though is hearing that the Apple Car will be Apple's next major hit. When you take a look at the automotive industry, one of the first points that stick out is the raw size of the industry. No other industry is able to boast such high unit sales at such a high price. In fact, the average price paid for a new car in the US crossed $40,000 in December of 2020. And even with the pandemic drop, 14.471 million cars were sold in the US in 2020 alone. This is extremely beneficial to Apple, as not only is there a lot of demand, but consumers are already willing to pay large amounts for their vehicles. When Apple introduced the iPhone, spending $500 for a phone was unheard of. Apple had to wait years for the market itself to grow before they could capitalize on the popularity of the iPhone. With cars, on the other hand, there's already millions of consumers who purchase luxury automobiles worth upwards of $100,000 every single year. Another major advantage for Apple is that the automotive market doesn't have any monopolistic players. Even the biggest automobile manufacturers only control a mere fraction of the overall industry. As of 2019, Toyota was the only company that even had a market share in the double digits, coming in at 10.24%. Volkswagen came in second place, boasting 7.59% market share, and everyone else is about 5% or under. Considering this, Apple won't have to deal with someone like Amazon in e-commerce or Google in search engines. Not to mention, Apple has no intention of competing against the major players. They're not trying to become the next Toyota, nor are they trying to become the next Tesla. You see, Apple has become the master of controlling extremely profitable niche markets, and they have no reason to divert from what they excel in. Just listen to what Tim Cook said at his congressional hearing.
Our goal is the best, not the most. In fact, we don't have a dominant share in any market or in any product category where we do business.
Keeping this in mind, the Apple Car will likely come in at about $75,000 like experts expect, and Apple will target a high-end niche market. Given the depth and breadth of the automotive industry, this approach will be easier than ever before. Something else to keep in mind is that Apple is well aware of what they're good at and what they're not good at. Something that they're not good at is manufacturing vehicles and scaling up production. Consequently, they have no issues admitting this upfront and looking for manufacturing partners. Scaling up manufacturing has been one of the biggest struggles for Tesla, so it's extremely wise that Apple is planning on outsourcing this from the very beginning. Considering all of this, plus the power of Apple branding, it's not hard to see how Apple can quickly grow into a niche player selling a few 100,000 cars every year. Over the long term, a realistic target for Apple may be about 1 million cars per year, which is a little more than 1% global market share. To put that in perspective, Mercedes-Benz or the Daimler Group achieved annual sales of 2.84 million cars in 2020. So, annual sales of 1 million for Apple would only be about a third of what legacy luxury automakers are achieving. At $75,000 a car, Apple would be able to generate approximately $75 billion annually in revenue. According to Apple's Q4 2020 earnings report, they were pulling in approximately $260 billion annually. Thus, the addition of an automotive business would grow Apple's overall revenue by nearly 30%. But this is where most automotive companies run into a problem. Though vehicles have high selling prices, it also costs quite a bit to actually produce and market a vehicle. Thus, most automakers have extremely meager profit margins. For instance, before the recent decline, luxury automakers like BMW were net profiting about 5 to 7%. If we call Apple's net profit 5% to be conservative, Apple would pull in about $3.75 billion annually. Now, that's still quite a bit of money, but it's nowhere near $75 billion. Moreover, Apple already generates $50 to $60 billion every single year in net profit, so their entrance into the automotive business would only increase their profit by about 7%. Considering this, though it won't be too terribly difficult for Apple to capture a niche portion of the car industry and generate enormous revenues, not very much of that will actually translate to Apple's bottom line. But then, why is Apple even bothering with cars? Well, the answer is that the Apple Car is not an automotive play, it's actually a services play. And that brings me into phase 2 of the Apple Car project. Once Apple has cracked into the car market by leveraging manufacturing partners and their own brand image, Apple will focus on milking high-margin service sales. In Apple's case, the first major service opportunity is of course autonomous software. For many years now, Tesla has been selling self-driving software as a one-time purchase, and that makes sense as self-driving software is still in beta development. However, Elon Musk already revealed that Tesla is working on a monthly subscription plan for self-driving software. And once FSD is more refined, it's likely that Tesla, as well as other self-driving software providers, will shift to subscription-only models. This makes much more sense, as customers are constantly receiving updates even years after their purchase. Not to mention, a subscription model will be significantly more profitable and reliable for automakers. So, companies will strongly prefer this option over the long term. And this is where Apple will really shine. But how much will they even charge for such a service? Well, we can estimate this based on what Tesla will likely charge. Currently, you have to pay Tesla $10,000 if you want to buy full self-driving upfront. Tesla definitely does not want to cannibalize these one-time sales by offering a super cheap subscription, so it's very unlikely that we'll see a price like $100 per month like many are hoping for. Here's the thing, if Tesla only charges $100 per month for an FSD subscription, it would take over 8 years for each user to pay the full $10K, and no one would buy the $10K option. Thus, it's crucial that the upfront option is more desirable over the long term. If we say that the upfront option is cheaper if you use it for 5 years or more, then the monthly subscription would have to cost at least $166.67. If we say that the upfront option is cheaper if you use it for 3 years or more, then the monthly subscription would have to cost at least $277.78. Considering this, it's likely that the monthly subscription option will cost at least $200 to $250 per month, and that's when FSD costs just $10,000. Elon Musk has previously tweeted that the value of full FSD is in excess of $100,000. So, over the long term, I have a feeling that Tesla will charge at least $300 per month and possibly as much as $500 per month. And considering that we're talking about Apple here, the amount they would charge would likely be on the higher end of the spectrum at $500 per month. I know that's extremely expensive, as that comes out to $6,000 every single year. Here's the thing though, the price of FSD is not based on how much people are willing to pay for it, but rather how much automakers can make by just keeping the technology to themselves. Tesla expects that using a Tesla as a robotaxi would generate $30,000 in gross profit every single year, so it makes absolutely no sense to sell you this technology for 10 or 20 grand. The average person, of course, cannot afford this, and that's why Tesla is planning to eventually fully shift away from the consumer car market and focus on just robotaxis. For Apple, on the other hand, their niche market may very well be interested in a premium $500 per month self-driving subscription. People who are buying a $75,000 car are obviously doing really well. Or at least I hope they are, as that would otherwise be a really dumb purchase. If we assume that the average Apple car buyer is making 4 to 7 times the price of the car on an annual basis, we get a salary range of about $300,000 to $500,000. Now, Dave Ramsey would advise that a car should be less than 10% of your gross annual income, meaning that ideally, Apple car buyers are making $750,000 per year or more. But we'll call it an average of $400,000 per year to be conservative. Given that the average person works 2,000 hours every single year, this means that our Apple car buyer is making roughly $200 per hour. So, though $500 per month for self-driving may be a lot to you and me, for a vice president or a local business owner, if getting Apple's self-driving subscription means that they can save more than 2.5 hours per month, it's absolutely worth it. The average American spends 10 hours and 50 minutes in a car every single week. That's the same as over 40 hours every month. If the average Apple car buyer has a similar commute time every month, they're only spending about $10 to $15 per hour of self-driving service. And instead of driving, they could be attending a meeting or closing a deal with a client, making hundreds of dollars during that time. At the end of 2019, experts estimated that 30 to 40% of Tesla buyers also bought autopilot. But really, that number is likely heavily skewed. It's likely that amongst Tesla Model X and S buyers, the take rate for FSD is closer to 50 to 60%. Meanwhile, the take rate amongst Model 3 and Y buyers is likely closer to 10 to 20%. If we say that the take rate for FSD is 50% amongst Apple car buyers, out of 1 million car sales every year, 500,000 customers will spring for the FSD option. In the US, the average time that a consumer keeps a car is about 6 years. Assuming that luxury car buyers switch cars more frequently, we'll say that the average Apple car buyer keeps their car for about 5 years. That means that Apple would have about 2.5 million monthly subscribers after they are done growing, and that's excluding the used car market. At $500 per month, that translates to $1.25 billion in revenue per month and $15 billion in revenue per year. If we take a look at Apple's financial report, we'll see that their gross margin on their services is 67%, meaning that Apple can enjoy gross profit of about $10 billion per year from self-driving software subscriptions. We'll say that the $3.75 billion Apple profits from actual car sales goes towards all of the operating expenses of FSD as well as taxes. That means that Apple could net profit about $10 billion every year just from their car business. But we're still not done. What about infotainment? The App Store brought in $64 billion in revenue in 2020. Apple takes a 30% cut of all the revenue that comes in through the App Store, meaning that itself is about $20 billion in profit. When you're in a self-driving Apple car, it's likely that you'll be listening to Apple Music or watching Apple TV or playing games offered on the Apple Car's App Store. And all of this is just billions of dollars more for Apple. Also, what about repairs? I'm sure Apple is going to make their cars hard to repair by yourself. If we add another $5 billion onto Apple's bottom line from car repairs and other car services, we get a total net profit of $15 billion per year. At their current PE ratio of 33.4, Apple's car business would add a little over $500 billion onto Apple's market cap. And that's why the Apple Car will be a monetary masterpiece. Did you guys realize the massive potential of the automotive services business? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you guys are excited for fully autonomous cars. And of course, consider joining our Discord community to suggest future video ideas, and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.